Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this year's Newnan-Coweta Chamber of Commerce forums for primaries to be held on May 21st. This is for 2024 primaries that touch on Coweta County in some ways. We have quite a few of those races, and one we're going to get to in just a moment. These forums, again, are hosted by the Newnan-Coweta Chamber of Commerce with thanks to our advocacy sponsor, AT&T. First, this forum is featuring candidates for Georgia State House District 65 in the Democratic primary. This district centers on southern Fulton County, covers parts of northern Coweta County, making its representatives part of Coweta's State House delegation. Early voting for these races are going to go on April 29th and then end on May 17th. And the winner of the May 21st primary is going to go on to that general election in November. 3 of 4 candidates in this race, in this primary, are with us tonight, and they are Robert Dawson, Mel Keaton, and Samuel Wakefield. Challenger Deandra Pickett could not make it tonight. The 3 of you are here, so we appreciate your participation in tonight's forum. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Our forum tonight is intended to give voters an opportunity to hear the views of these candidates on issues faced by the communities represented within this district and in the state of Georgia generally. Each candidate was given the opportunity to complete a general information questionnaire ahead of this forum, and the responses to those are going to be available both on the Chamber website and accessible through the Newnan Times-Herald website. Chamber of Commerce is a nonpartisan organization, does not endorse candidates for office. Questions have been submitted by Chamber members and are going to apply equally to all of our candidates here tonight. We ask that our guests at tonight's forum also respect that neutrality by refraining from any demonstration for or against any of our candidates. We ask that you hold your applause or any show of support or opposition during our forum. This occasion is meant to give our candidates a chance to speak for themselves as they seek election. Just a note on the format, our forum's format allows for each of our candidates to start with a 2-minute opening statement and then have a 2-minute closing statement at the very end. Candidates are going to have then up to 1 minute in between to respond to a series of questions that will be asked equally. After the second candidate gives his answer, or third in this case, gives his answer to a question, a 30-second rebuttal is also going to be allowed if the first or second candidate chooses. Candidates are going to be signaled when they have about 10 or 15 seconds remaining, and they may finish their sentence when their time is up. We're also going to alternate again who goes first on each question. So, again, thanks to all 3 of you for joining us and for choosing to run in this important election. We're going to begin now with our opening statements. Mr. Dawson, I'm going to ask you to take one of our podiums, if you would. And I'll ask you to start with your opening statement. Take about 2 minutes or so. Tell us a little bit about yourself personally and professionally and why you're running for the Georgia House of Representatives and the Democratic nomination for this seat.
Good evening. Thanks for hosting this and taking time to have us enjoy this dialogue. I'm your candidate for this important position, Robert Dawson. And I'm asking for your support because the future of this district and the future of the state is much too important to leave in the hands of anyone else. I'm a proud resident of District 65. I live in South Fulton, and I have over 20 years of experience working in the public and private sectors, including the United States House of Representatives. My life has been dedicated to service. In many ways, I've lived the American dream. I was born next door in Birmingham, Alabama. My father was a steel worker, and my mother was a bell worker. And they put me through college. I'm a product of the public schools. Being a product of the public schools, I've had the opportunity to attend some of the greatest colleges and universities in the land, including Harvard University. But this isn't about me. I want all of our children to have that same opportunity that I've been able to enjoy. Growing up in Birmingham, surrounded by that legacy, has caused me to be engaged in community service at a young age. One of my first community service endeavors was as chairman of the youth in the Mothers Against Violence And even now, all these years later, you see that we still have the same problem with gun violence in the community and the need for gun control. In a professional capacity, I've consulted in finance and IT. I've also worked with the New York State Department of Health, the University of Alabama, and I'm currently working for one of the largest and most prestigious university hospitals in the world. Looking forward to this dialogue. Thank you for your consideration. Again, I'm Robert Dawson, electdawson.com.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Keaton, your opening statement.
Hi, I'm Mel Keaton, running for District 65 State Representative, and my career is in engineering and watershed for DeKalb County government and GIS. I do a lot of work in infrastructure. I work with the federal government on EPA problems dealing with the federal consent decree. I've been in this area. I'm a product of APS schools and Fulton County schools. What I do now, I'm a public servant, and I live to serve. I'm the president of my homeowners association, and a lot of my legislation is geared toward fixing the problem with Georgia and their homeowners associations. We know that there has to be some oversight, so a lot of my legislation is geared toward fixing that problem that we have, and it's a growing problem. The next legislation that I plan to present is the problem post-pandemic. A lot of people have had their homes, and mostly seniors, had their homes stolen during post-pandemic and during the pandemic through title fraud. So my legislation, I'm looking toward bringing back legislation that will fix that problem and offer help to those seniors who have lost their homes, and make legislation so this can be a felony, and the people that have taken those homes from the seniors will have to give them back and pay restitution to those seniors. Also, my legislation is geared toward infrastructure problems. I know our government can run more efficiently because I see it every day. I deal with it every day. I manage about 33 cities in DeKalb County. I manage them on a day-to-day basis. So I want to fix those problems with the infrastructure, make sure the money is going where it needs to go. So to set the cities up that have intergovernment agreements with surrounding cities like DeKalb, Fulton, Coweta, East Point, Atlanta. So those intergovernment agreements work together in sync so we can make sure we set the cities up and all the cities have what they need to be successful.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. Mr. Wakefield, your opening statement, please, sir.
Good evening. A few weeks ago, I was able to moderate a panel for a group of high school students. And these students were learning about politics, and they were putting forth ideas about what they would want to accomplish if they were running for office. And so they talked about what they would change in education and healthcare and climate and with the environment and voting rights. And throughout the course of the evening, my job was to choose a winner for this panel. And at the end of it, I remember, after choosing a winner, I remember thinking what was the most remarkable thing about being there with those students was their passion for their ideas, and also the fact that they thought it was actually possible to solve problems and come to reasonable solutions while working across their various differences, even though they all had a different idea, a different way of how they wanted to solve those problems. I still find that remarkable, and that's what I saw often throughout my career as an educator. So my name is Sam Wakefield. I'm a father of 4 daughters, a husband of 1 wife. I live in District 65, and I am an educator. The most important thing that you need to know about me, similar to what I learned from those young students that day moderating their panel, was I care about 3 key issues. I care about investing in education, I care about expanding access to healthcare, and I care about ensuring that we're protecting our voting rights. And like those students, I believe in a politics of change rather than a politics of division. I believe that people can work together and find common sense solutions to solve real problems. So that's the work that I'm looking to build with our candidacy. And so looking forward to talk more about that this evening. Thank you all for having us here. Coweta Chamber of Commerce, thanks.
Thank you, sir. We'll now get on to our general questions. Again, these are going to be 1-minute answers, and we're going to stagger. So, Mr. Keaton, you're going to be the first one to get this question, if you could. Our first question tonight, and we're asking this of both our Democratic and our Republican nominees in this primary season in various races, but the first one is about partisanship and party. You are a Democratic candidate. Tell us about your decision to run specifically as a Democrat and your relationship with or experience with your party.
Well, I'm not just one thing. I'm running as a Democratic candidate, but I also have different views, and my views are that sometimes I'm liberal, sometimes I'm conservative, and I can agree to disagree, but sometimes I agree with the other party. Sometimes I don't. So when I'm running, it's because we need people in here that's going to not be a part of the status quo, and we need sometimes as candidates and elected officials, we tend to become a part of the machine, and I don't want to be a part of the machine. I want to be a part of the people that represent the working class. So that's why I decided to run.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Mr. Wakefield, you next, please, sir. Same question.
Yeah, just a moment ago, I did mention that a big part of our campaign promise has been running on a politics of change rather than a politics of division. I take my cue from the young folks that I engage with as an educator every day throughout our work over the last 2 decades. They're not looking for partisanship. They're certainly not looking for adults in the room who cannot find ways to solve problems across lines of difference. And so whether I have a D or an R or an I next to my name, the only thing that matters is that when people elect me to go to the Georgia General Assembly, they're electing me to go and solve problems, to work across the aisle, and to find common sense middle ground solutions. I think that most of our answers are in the middle. That does not mean that I don't have strong opinions about where we should start, but it does mean that in order to solve problems, we have to be pragmatic about what we do and how we approach the process. And so I believe in working across the aisle, and I intend to do so.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dawson.
I'm a lifelong Democrat. I worked for my first congressman as a page and an intern when I was 16 years old, Congressman Ben Erdrich. I'm currently a post seat holder for the Fulton County Democrats, and then I'm also on the executive committee of the South Fulton Democrats. I believe in democratic values. They've served me. I was born and raised in the Baptist church, and I'm from Birmingham, so I'm a country boy. And my pastor, he had a tidbit he used to always say. He said it was amazing that a black cow could chew green grass past white milk that churns into yellow butter, all this under a blue sky. And that's what I see in the Democratic Party in this district, in this community, just a rich diversity that we want to bring together and respect and build common ground.
Thank you, sir. As I said, these 1-minute questions, we also give rebuttals if you desire. Ms. Keaton, would you desire a rebuttal? Mr. Wakefield?
I do think that, one of the progressive ideals that I think I could speak for our group here, that we care a lot about, that I would hope we can find middle or common ground with folks across the aisle, are things in voting rights, healthcare, and education. Again, those 3 areas. Because at the end of the day, regardless of where I stand on some of my own progressive ideals, I do think that the majority of Georgian citizens care about answers, and they are not interested in our own partisan politics.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Mr. Dawson, rebuttal?
Yeah, I'll just say that as a candidate, it's not that I want the job, I want to do the work. And as a matter of fact, I'm not just talking about the work, I'm doing the work now. I took a Saturday off a couple of Saturdays ago, and we elected our delegates to the convention. Last Saturday, I was out sign waving at the grocery store, registering voters, and I'm constantly helping other campaigns. So this isn't about wanting a job for me, it's about me wanting to help my community and me wanting to do the work.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on with our next question. Start talking about some of the issues before you potentially as legislators. One of the primary functions of the General Assembly, of course, is to set the state budget. And so our questions are going to deal with some of the state budget and taxes respectfully. Georgia General Assembly passed this year a $36.1 billion budget in March, including, I think, a number of things, significant pay raises for state employees, law enforcement, teachers, and so forth. That was funded in part by a state revenue surplus. Fiscal budget was a little bit of an increase over the prior year, still a little bit lower than the fiscal year 2024 mid-year spending plan. Basically, lawmakers, both I think at the time, said wanted to draw the budget back a bit in anticipation of the possibilities of difficult times. I give that very general description of the budget process with a number of big details within it, obviously. We're going to go to Mr. Wakefield first, but my question is, how do you assess the state's budget priorities passed by the General Assembly this year? And what items would you consider most important to take into consideration going forward for the state budget?
All right, so I like to talk about a few numbers when it comes to our state budget. The first one to keep in mind is $16 billion, right? So we have the rainy day fund that's a part of it, and then we have the excess of $10.5 or so billion. I know that as a state, we've decided to not expand Medicaid thus far. I think that's a miscalculation, and I think we have an opportunity to reinvest in the health and the communities of our folks across this state. So I think that we have more to do when it comes to leveraging our budget well. I think some of the things that we did to invest in the over 300,000 educators across our state in that budget, I applaud. I think it was great. I also don't think it went far enough. And I think another number that we need to keep in mind is 3. 3 times. That means the number of black women who die in childbirth is 3 times greater than any other subgroup in our state, and our state is also one of the worst in the country for just maternal rates in general. So again, those are opportunities for us to invest in. I can go on and on, but my time is about to be up. But those are some of the numbers where we would start with and improving our budget.
Thank you, sir. And you're right, that is a very complex subject for 1 minute, so I appreciate that attempt at it. That was very good, thank you. Mr. Dawson, you next, please, sir. Same question.
Yeah, so we're blessed in Georgia in that we have everything we need. We did have a $16.1 billion surplus. It's down to about $14 billion now we spent on that. About 75% of that budget goes to education and healthcare. Some of the practical things I'd like to see with the budget, some more funding for modernizing and making more energy efficient our school bus fleet. One thing I'm disappointed about is this school voucher scam. I'm a product of the public schools. This is a total scam. It's welfare for the wealthy, so that if you're a doctor, you have 2 children, you're putting them through school for 4 years, you're gonna come out with a 6-figure of funding from the public schools and the poor schools in our district, and that money, you can buy a Cadillac or Mercedes-Benz with it. So some of the priorities are off, but I'm still optimistic in that we have everything that we need.
Thank you Thank you, sir. Mr. Keaton.
Yeah, so with our $16.1 billion budget, it's okay, but I really feel like they could have did a better job at budgeting, and they could have did a better job at doing the infrastructure, because when I look at this model every day, and the model is wrong. That's our infrastructure model, and that's our lines, our sewer lines, and pumps and lift stations and water treatment plants, and we actually need that. So I think they could have did a better job at doing that. But the one thing I do think that we need to start looking at while we have a surplus is finding more taxable income, maybe giving licenses. I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, but the growing of marijuana and hemp, we need to start looking into that because as a way for more tax revenue, because we have a surplus right now, but we also need hospitals right now, and we don't have enough of those in healthcare. Like I have a son right now who's out of healthcare. He played football. We don't have any healthcare right now because he's going to the NFL draft, and now we have to find healthcare, and he shouldn't have to go through that right now. So we want to make sure that healthcare is at the top of my list.
All right. Thank you, sir. Ms. Wakefield, did you have a rebuttal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just add two quick thoughts, because I think the mention of healthcare is, again, this idea of how we need to invest more in healthcare in particular, there's a couple of additional numbers that we talk to voters often about and we hear a lot about. So one, I know we just passed a bill where we increased paid leave for state workers from 3 weeks to 6 weeks. Great. However, 76% of Georgians still don't have any access to paid leave, period. That's an opportunity for us. And in addition, what my opponent just mentioned about the state hospitals, if we expanded Medicaid, that would actually fund for most of our rural areas, help to fund some of those state hospitals that we're trying to make more opportunities for them to open up. So,
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dawson, rebuttal. Mr. Keaton, rebuttal.
Yeah, so with the healthcare issue, I work in government, and our healthcare isn't that great. So I think we also need to look at our government workers. Even though they gave that increase, it's still the benefits go up. So we really don't see the benefit of the increase, because every time we get a raise, the benefits go up. So we're really not seeing that. I wish we can do more as to with that budget to help us either get better health care so it's a benefit to working government jobs, because right now the younger generation doesn't see a benefit in working for government right now.
All right, thank you, sir. We're going to go on to our next question. This one, something y'all began to touch on a couple times, and that's tax revenues, tax structure and tax revenues. Mr. Dawson, you're going to be the first one up for this question. This year, the state approved, or actually, pardon me, in 2022, the state approved a flat income tax and then enacted a multi-year reduction in that state tax rate last year in response to rising revenues, and then voted to accelerate that reduction this year. What are your views of the current overall tax structure in the state of Georgia and the direction of state tax revenues?
Yes, thank you for the question. The homestead exemption, I'd like to see that expanded. That's something we can afford to do. You're sitting on $14.1 billion. Let's give some of that money back to the homeowners and see how that trickles down. And then I would also like to see business taxes reduced so that we can spur the economy. One thing that one of my visions, one benefit that I want to offer to my voters and my constituents, my neighbors, is that let's upscale this district. I'm in cybersecurity, I'm in cryptocurrency, so I want to see STEM training. I also have a construction background, a family construction background. My father's a home builder, I'm a home builder. I want to see trade schools. So let's look out for the businesses, lower those taxes so they can spur the economy and employ our citizens.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Keaton? Oh, Shirley. Talk a little bit about your view on state taxes and tax revenues. As we have gone to a flat income tax brought down because of rising revenue and surpluses, just what are your general views on the current overall tax structure in Georgia and the direction of our state tax revenues?
Well, I'm glad we need to do more for small business. I actually, outside of working for DeKalb County, I have a small business. I do home restoration on the side. That's my business. So, and I also had a hookah lounge in Carrollton, Georgia. And because we went out of business in my restaurant business because of the tax base, we couldn't afford to pay the employees without the ERC. And I want to see more tax revenue come toward the small businesses. And secondly, I think that I would like to see our tax structure work more with HUD, because it's a housing crisis right now. So with that revenue, I would like to see our state taxes go toward HUD, so those houses that go in foreclosure can also make our state and local residents homeowners, so they don't have to bargain with the investors anymore. We need to actually put more money into HUD so people can be homeowners.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wakefield.
all right, so 3 bills that were just passed by the General Assembly, and one of which has already been signed into law by the governor I support, and then I'm going to recommend something that I think we should take up in the next General Assembly. So like my colleague mentioned, the increase in the homestead exemption that was passed by the General Assembly that went from 2K to 4K. I support that. I think we should do more, but I think that's a start in the right direction. I think two other bills that were passed and have already been signed by the governor, so the increase in the child income tax deduction, and then the increase or the decrease in the corporate tax rate. Both of those are going to bring in additional revenue for both our state and also for individual families. But I think there's an additional step that we need to take, which is tying an increase in our minimum wage to cost of inflation. Our minimum wage is still dramatically low. And I think each of us are all small business owners. There are many of folks who are small business owners. What we know is we can't find and recruit folks to work with us at livable wages. It's going to be hard on small business owners in particular. So I think that's an area that we can work on in the General Assembly to support folks.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dawson, rebuttal? And for you, Mr. Keaton, rebuttal? All right. This has been a really good conversation. I unfortunately only have time for one other question before we get on to our closing statements, but it's been, appreciate the way y'all have engaged the issues in this. It's been very interesting. Almost picking one out of the hat at this point, but let me just ask you what you think about this. Election security, voter access, those have been major ongoing political issues since at least the state's 2020 elections. At this point, what do you think about the changes that have been made, passed, instituted into Georgia law? Do you favor more or different approaches? And Mr. Keaton, we're going to start with you, please, sir.
Yes, I think that some of our laws that have been passed with the voting are not right. I mean, some of the bills that were passed, I just think they were passed to discourage our voters. So I would like to see them revisit that issue in that law that was passed, especially about giving seniors water. And and I think there's still a loophole in our election process. It's evident. We have some people in different cities around Georgia that are still voting by paper. And I think we need to look at that as a way of maybe voter suppression, because sometimes we can't always validate that paper. We have evolved into the technology now to not still be using paper ballots for elections and election processes right now. So I think they could do a better job there.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Wakefield.
Yeah, I mean, the spotlight is on Georgia, right? In particular over the last several years, but also because Georgia's the cradle of the civil rights movement. And so if anywhere, we should be a place that it's easier to vote and secure for folks to be able to vote. And I believe that there's opportunities for us to continue to find ways to expand access, whether that's increasing opportunities for same-day registration. I feel like the General Assembly this past year, especially the Senate, went in the wrong direction with a number of the bills that fortunately didn't see the light of day, but things like eliminating automatic voter registration when you go to the driver's office. Those are bills in the wrong direction, right? I think we need to move in the right direction when it comes to expanding access, and I think things like same-day voter registration, making sure that we are securing the opportunity for folks to continue to have automatic voter registration when they renew their driver's license. Those are things that we need to do to ensure that more folks have access to the ballot, and that's what I believe in.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dawson.
Thanks for this question. And as a part of my role as a post-seat holder with the Democratic Party and also with the South Fulton Dems, I'm active with voter protection, voter education, and even outside of the controversial issues regarding the things that may become partisan, there's just smart things we could do. I'm personally for instant runoff or ranked choice voting. I love to see that in Georgia. We've 4 of us in this race, so statistically there might be a runoff. It's going to be 4 more weeks of spending and a drop-off in interest from the voters. So it would be cool if you all could make a choice of 2 of us or rank your choices so that on May 21st I could be ready to be sworn in instead of having to battle for this thing 4 more weeks. So not just the negative things. I try to find a positive lining in all of these issues. So there's a lot of positive things we can do, better technology, better cybersecurity. So a lot of opportunities there with voting issues. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Keaton, rebuttal?
One of the things I also think that we need to start looking into is as far as voting, and we really got to look into term limits. I know it's the unfavorable thing to do and say, but we really got to look into term limits, because the longer you are in some of these positions and make these rules and regulations, you can get it's easy to get compromised because you're used to doing it, you're used to the people around you. So I think when that changes, I think some of the voter laws would change, because people don't want to lose their seat. They want to stay in these seats forever. So that's the reason why I feel like they're putting this legislation in place. So.
All right. Mr. Wakefield, rebuttal?
Two other quick things that I think. One, I do think that while most of the bill that was passed in 2022 actually hindered access, I think there were a few elements of it that helped. So for a number of parts of our state that didn't have mandated weekend voting options, it's mandated now, and there are longer periods of earlier voting for some places. So I think that was a good thing. I will say, I do think that our state, in addition to a number of other states that are moving in that direction already, but our state should move there, we should not be drawing our own maps. I think at the end of the day, when legislators choose their own voters, we get a worse off system. And I think that we should move to a nonpartisan way of drawing our political maps that impacts voting ultimately, because at the end of the day, voters should be choosing their representatives and not the other way around. So I think we should move there.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dawson, rebuttal? With that, gentlemen, unfortunately, I need to move on to closing statements. I believe Mr. Wakefield goes first in this rotation. Before we get there, I just want to thank each of you again for coming here tonight, being so forthcoming on these issues. We've tried to discuss several important matters, and I know there's plenty that we haven't had time for. But if there are some that we've missed that you are particularly important to you, make sure you treat those in your closing statement. And Mr. Wakefield, take up to 2 minutes for your closing statement, please, sir.
Thank you all for having us this evening. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm just going to start by just sharing a bit of a story. 1939, a woman named Angie Starks was born. That's my grandmother. She was one of the women who raised me. 26 years later, as an adult, in 1965, the Voting Rights Act was passed. My grandmother, who raised me, she's an educator herself. I later became an educator. One of the main things she instilled in us was both pride in our own educational experience, but also pride in the ballot. And one of the reasons why it's so important and critical for me to stand here for folks, to encourage them to vote, to make sure that we're exercising that right, is because of what she modeled for us growing up, both around education and also voting. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here today. It's also one of the reasons why, as a father of daughters, I can stand before them and talk about the things that matter to us as a family, and those are the three things that I spend my time talking to voters about: education, expanded access to health care, and ensuring that we're protecting our voting rights. And so I'm asking for your support, Sam Wakefield for District 65, because I believe in a politics of change rather than a politics of division, and I believe that we can build a movement together towards that. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dawson, your closing statement.
Sure. Thanks for allowing us this opportunity tonight. I'm enjoying the dialogue. I'll throw my stump speech out and just speak from the heart. When they did redraw these maps and they drew Coweta, northern Coweta County into this thing, it gave me an opportunity to meet my neighbors down here. And I've met those Coweta Dems who, my Fulton Dems, are a little jealous because I just keep bragging about how good people they are, and they really are. And even on the other side of the aisle, I was in a dialogue last night with one of my Republican colleagues. We found a lot that we agreed upon. So this is a sprawling district. It runs from northern Coweta up through all of Chattahoochee Hills, 4 districts in the city of South Fulton, Union City, East Point, and 1 precinct in Atlanta. My pledge is that I'll live up to my upbringing, and I'll be compassionate. I'll represent everyone, regardless of your race, your ethnicity, what color shoes you have on, your sexuality. We're all neighbors, and that's or if you're a Republican, if you're a Democrat, if you're independent, I'm here to serve. I've been poured into by men and women in the community, teachers, pastors, friends, and family, and I just want to repay that debt. So I'm asking for your consideration and your vote right now. I'm Robert Dawson. The website's electdawson.com. If you could pitch in $5, $10, $25, or 50 cents, I can buy some stamps and we can keep getting this message out. And sincerely, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Keaton.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for having us and having me tonight. I really want you to know that I really represent the working class, and my legislation is always geared toward people first, and I always put the people first. So one of the things you'll notice about me, I want you to just do your research about me. I always, 100% of the time, put people first. I never put politics over people, and I have a 100% rate of doing good things, and I'll always come through for my community. I've already been doing the work already. Like I've done so much in the community. If you look at my website or just Google Mel Keaton, you'll see all the great things that I've done for the community, not just the community that I live in, but you'll see the other people, the stuff that I've done to fix homes for elderly people who were indigent, that didn't have funding to fix their working kitchens. And I want to let you know that I want to make sure that you get the grant money that comes around that comes to Georgia, that you get it. You know, a lot of the funding that we have been getting over the years have not been coming to the district. So I want to make sure that all the cities are set up the same, everybody's set up for success. And with that, you know, I'll be a watchdog and make sure that you have everything that you need. So if you like to visit my website, votemelkeaton.com, you can visit my website and see all the things I've done. You'll see some of the great things I've done. It's just too much to just sit up here and talk about. So, but you have somebody who represents the working class who's always going to put you first. You always has integrity, always stand alone, stand up guy, all the time. So thank you. I really appreciate you tonight. So vote Mel Keaton on next week, early voting start. So you can visit my website, or you can come to the community and talk to the people that live closest to me and ask them about me for a reference. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to all of you gentlemen for participating in these Newnan-Coweta Chamber of Commerce forums, and of course to our sponsor AT&T. Want to mention quickly, thank you to the Central Educational Center student interns for recording tonight's forums. And one more time, gentlemen, I think you did a fantastic job. Thank you so much for participating tonight. I think you deserve a round of applause.